Tomorrow at the White House, negotiations will resume between the House Republicans and the Biden administration over the debt ceiling. Of course, the deadline is looming, June 1st. They've known about this. They've known about this since the beginning of this legislative session. And yet, according to House Speaker McCarthy, the White House just started to entertain conversations last week. But now they're claiming they didn't really wait. No, they had other things going on. Congressman Beth Van Duyne of Texas is on the House Committee on Ways and Means, which is a pretty important committee when it comes to spending. Thanks for joining us, Congresswoman.
Yeah, it's a pretty important committee when it comes to how we're going to look at our taxes and our spending and how we are trying to do our best right now, as you mentioned, with our Limit, Save, and Grow bill to limit our wasteful spending, to save taxpayer dollars, and to grow our economy. And that's exactly what we're working on in Ways and Means.
We hear some people in this town saying, why don't we just do a temporary fix to the debt ceiling just so you have a little bit more time to negotiate. Is that a good idea, or do you think that they operate better when there's a deadline looming like this?
I mean, I don't know what that deadline is exactly right now because, Yellen keeps kind of going all over the board. She's thrown up the red flag that it's now June 1st. So, yeah, does it make better sense? I think from a business perspective, if you're looking at, people who are trying to figure out what their budget is going to be, some kind of consistency is king, and we don't ever seem to do that. We're kind of always in D.C. making decisions at the last minute. But it's unfortunate that we've had all of these months leading up that the president could have been negotiating and has just refused to do that and has been very proud of the fact that he's not willing to negotiate at all with the Republicans. I don't think he believed that we would actually be able to pass that debt save and grow bill. I don't think he thought that we had the votes so we were going to stay together as a team.
I think you're right.
And we did, and kicked it over to the Senate, kicked it over to the president. We've done our job. Mr. President, come to the table, work with us.
Yeah, it's understandable they didn't have time in the first couple of months of this year to negotiate with you because he was too busy crafting his State of the Union where he called you all MAGA fascists and extremists. But I remember Speaker McCarthy, like the day after he was elected Speaker, saying, we got a debt ceiling problem, let's get together and let's start talking about it. That was in January. Yesterday on CNN, Deputy Treasury Secretary Wally Adeyemo was actually asked specifically about this. Why did the administration wait so long? Here was his answer.
The president didn't wait. The president outlined his own plan for what we would do in terms of fiscal policy in March, where he talked about reducing the debt by $3 trillion by cutting things like subsidies to oil and gas companies. The Speaker wasn't able to get a plan through the House until the end of April.
There you go. We didn't wait. We got our budget in March, and the Speaker's bill didn't go through until April. You're from Texas. Does that dog hunt?
No, that dog does not hunt at all. The budget that the president sent over was a ridiculously excessive, wasteful spend budget, nearly $7 trillion. And no, I mean, you have to realize that, you have more than one party in control right now. You've got Republicans who have the House. We want to work together. We want to look out for the best interests of working families and for small businesses who this administration's policies seem to have hit the hardest. What we're trying to do with this bill is we look at all of the wasteful spending that we've seen. This debt limit increase that we were forced to have to put forward, otherwise we were going to have to default on American loans. The reason why we had to do this in the first place is because the ridiculous amount of spending that we've seen put forward by Democrats in the last couple of years. Their Inflation Reduction Act, which has done exactly opposite of reducing inflation. We warned Democrats, if you continue to spend like this, we are going to hit our debt limit. We have increased our debt limit to untold amounts, historic amounts. We've seen spending. What we're trying to do with this is get people back to work. We've put in work requirements as part of this bill because around the country, it doesn't matter what industry that you're listening to, what they're telling you is we can't get people back to work because they're getting more money from the government than they are from employment. We need to get people back to work. So putting in some of those requirements, looking at unleashing American energy independence, cutting some of the permits that the permitting costs and the permitting lengths of time would definitely help, and stopping the money that's going to China, through a lot of those green tax policies that they've got, those green tax credits, which, by the way, 90% are going to companies that make more than $1 billion in revenue a year. and then you look at the pass-through through China. Those are the things that we're trying to stop. We're asking the White House, we're asking the Democrats in the Senate and the House to partner with us on that because it's in the best interest of American citizens.
Here's something I really don't understand about this Congresswoman. You're much smarter than me. You're on the Ways and Means Committee. You're a member of Congress. You're trying to roll back spending from just before the end of the year. You're not going all the way back to pre-COVID. You're not. I wish you would, but that's how you're going back to 2022. Well, that budget had a huge amount of money set aside for COVID-19 pandemic help. The pandemic's over. That's why Title 42 was lifted last week. The World Health Organization has lifted the pandemic protocols, and yet there's billions of dollars just sitting there unspent. Why? Why can't we just grab that money back?
That's part of the bill that we put forward, is taking the unspent COVID funds and putting it back in. And I appreciate you bringing up the spending limits. I was kind of a holdout on the limit save road bill, because what I wanted to do is go back to pre-pandemic spending, exactly like you said. So what we were able to work out and negotiate is we went back to pre-pandemic spending, except for defense spending. Because when you think about what's happening in Ukraine and Russia, what could potentially be happening with China and Taiwan, what we're seeing in Afghanistan, what we're seeing in Iran, that is an area of our budget. We have to make sure that we are protecting our country.
Well,
and we wanted to make sure that we weren't depleting funds to our military.
And by the way, it has the beauty of being a part of the Congress's constitutional responsibility, national defense, not some of the other things they're spending money on that isn't actually articulated in the Constitution. Which brings us to the border. You're a congresswoman from Texas. You guys are feeling it worse than anybody. What do you make of the administration seeming to do a victory lap because it wasn't as chaotic as everyone expected this weekend?
Well, this is on par for what this administration does. They create a huge, massive fire. They're able to put it out in a closet, and yet they want to say, claim success. We have a bunch of arsonists right now running around the White House and running around the Democratic Party, starting these fires and then trying to claim, that they somehow are victorious over them. This was constructed. This was planned by the Democrats and by the Biden administration. And I thought it was absolutely absurd that last week we had to spend time passing a bill to force this administration to do its job, which you so wisely pointed out is the basic fundamental job of the federal government, which is to protect our country. We have seen massive amounts, up to over 7 million people enter our country illegally, not to mention the drugs, the opioids, the fentanyl. They're killing over 100,000 of our citizens and targeting our youth. That's what we've seen. These people who continue to start fires, and then they want to take a victory lap and claim that they have somehow overcome it. You're right. What we're seeing right now, that they've lifted Title 42, it's chaos down there. You have seen, there's no escaping the mountainous amounts of video that are showing exactly what's happening down there. And I would love for this president, for this vice president who is the czar, border czar, to get down there and see it themselves, to talk to the people that it's affecting the most. In our state, we are having to fly people and take them by bus to other areas of the country because, Eric Adams in New York is now having to do that, saying that he's overrun. Welcome to the party. Come down to Texas and see what our small cities at the border are having to deal with, or cities like Dallas and Houston. We're absolutely overrun, not getting enough help. Have the ability, the tools on the table to be able to solve it if you just enforce the laws that we have today.
Well, and given that,
administration won't do it.
We only have about a minute left, but the president, as well as Secretary Mayorkas, they swear to uphold the Constitution and to faithfully execute the laws. It seems like the laws are not being faithfully executed. It's actually in quite bad faith. They're ignoring the laws. Is this impeachment territory?
Look, we have a lot of folks, starting with Mayorkas, that I would like to see impeached. What we're going to try to do is get back our country one step at a time, starting with our budget, starting with our spending, and starting with protecting our border, which is why you've seen those be two of the most massive bills that we put forward this Congress. Thank God we at least have a stopgap by Republicans having control of the Congress. We're going to keep doing that work to try to protect American people and grow our economy. We have to be able to compete we have to be able to compete worldwide, and it starts with working together.
Representative Beth Van Duyne, we'll leave it there. 24th District in Texas and the Ways and Means Committee in the House. Thanks for joining us on a busy day as those debt ceiling negotiations begin again tomorrow. There's more to come on O'Connor Tonight. You're watching Salem News Channel.